The original Super Nintendo controller is iconic and influenced almost every controller after it. It was the first controller to add left and right shoulder buttons. It also added 2 additional X and Y buttons. Those buttons were made concave to better differentiate them from the A and B buttons, which are convex. That's just genius, man. Genius. The 4 additional buttons allowed for much more complex controls and game mechanics than were previously possible. In this video, we're going to take a look at 4 different controllers for the Super Nintendo. I was looking for a scientific way to compare these controllers, but all I found was this test app that verifies the inputs on the controllers are working and doesn't do much else. So the majority of what I'll be discussing is my own personal opinion. Now let's dive in and look at each controller, starting with the Circa. The Circa is well built, but I find the buttons and D-pad are too firm. I also found the cord on this controller to be stiff, which can be a little annoying because it doesn't bend much at the base of the controller. Although, maybe this makes it more durable and less likely to wear. I don't have a lot to say about this controller. Overall, I just don't care much for the Circa and never really find myself reaching for it. While creating this video, I thought perhaps I was being too harsh in my critique of this controller, so I went back and revisited my assessment and found that, yeah, I just don't really like the feel of this thing.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. No, sir, I don't like it.
Next up, the Hyperkin Scout. This is a really nice controller. It feels slightly more precise to me than the other controllers, but again, I don't really have a way to measure other than how it feels. It has a 10-foot cord, which is 4 feet longer than the other controllers, but I still found myself using an extension cable with it. The Hyperkin Scout has an ergonomic design. There's a nice curved raised surface on the back of the left and right sides, which makes the controller very comfortable to hold. It's a really nice feature that improves on the almost flawless design of the original Super Nintendo controller. I think the Hyperkin Scout is an excellent controller and it's been my go-to for some time now. The ergonomic design is what really makes this controller as good as it is. Next, let's look at the OG Super Nintendo controller. There's not much to say here. It's the original, and you can't really beat that. The buttons have a softer feel to them, and don't have the somewhat clicky, more tactile response that the newer controllers have. Although, to be fair, I bought my Super Nintendo controller off of eBay. It's likely 20 years old, and who knows how much it's been used in that time. I don't find the softer buttons to be a bad thing, but it's something worth mentioning. You can find these on eBay and other online shops for around $20, but getting a brand new one is going to cost you. Next up, the 8bitdo, or 8bitdo. Whatever you call it, I don't care. Some people get all pissy about whether it's do or do. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck! When I bought my Super NT and got into retro gaming, this is the controller I started with. I played through 40 hours of Chrono Trigger using this controller and had 0 issues with it. It's solid, well built, and holds a charge for a decent amount of time. It comes with a receiver that plugs right into any original style Super Nintendo controller port. Original style Super Nintendo controller port. Say that 5 times fast. This controller does have one weakness though, and it's on fast-paced games like Tetris. Tetris can get really fast, and that exposes the input lag of this wireless controller. When testing these 4 controllers against each other, I could get much further in Tetris using any of the wired controllers than I could with the 8bitdo. The 8bitdo wireless controller is a little bit more expensive than the other controllers, coming in at a cost of $40. Overall, this is a fantastic controller with the convenience of wireless. I highly recommend it. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these controllers. Personally, I don't care for the Circa. I find myself using the Hyperkin more often than not, mostly due to the comfort of its ergonomic design. But the wireless 8bitdo is extremely convenient and has an excellent build quality. If you're going with a wired controller, you're going to want to pick up an extension cable. You can find these on sites like Amazon and eBay for under $10. I recommend picking up one or two. That's it for now. Be sure to like, smash, subscribe, and hit that bell.